Alright, what is up, boys and girls? Welcome back to another video. As always, thank you very much for joining me again for another video on the V-shape recovery. This strategy has been an absolutely fantastic strategy for me recently. Over the past 3 or 4 months, I've started trading this strategy, and to be honest, I've had some pretty unbelievable success trading on NQ, or, you know, basically the NASDAQ. US 500 on this chart. Obviously, this is NQ as well. You can see here, this chart isn't as clean as the US chart on this very, very recent one that actually happened last night, as you can see, but you could have used this as a really good example of a nice V-shaped recovery, inverted fair value gap. You can see pretty much this worked out pretty nicely on this chart. It wasn't as clean on the other chart, so I didn't actually take anything on this one, but you can see the potential for a V-shape on this. We did have some news last night. Apparently, Iran has been attacked by Israel, which is obviously a big piece of news. Big drop in the NASDAQ as a result. Lots of volatility here, as you would have expected, but you can kind of see the vision. This could have been a nice V-shape if we did get a nice V-shape back up, but we actually just dropped and started to consolidate rather than getting that instant reversal back around you'd be looking for a V-shape. But as I said, this is a strategy, a very, very simple strategy that I have been actually trading for the past 3 or 4 months, and I've had absolute ton of success. And if I look back across this chart, you can see I've actually marked out a lot of the V-shaped recoveries that I've recently taken. And I just wanted to go through a few of them really and just talk about how good this strategy is, what the strategy is, and also how you can implement it. You can see there's tons and tons of V-shapes on this 5 minute here that could have been taken. You can see here, this is the start of my my available history on TradingView, because I don't have the ridiculously long trading history, but we can go through some of this and basically take a look at some of the things we're looking at. You can see there's a lovely V shape here, and I think, let me just draw a big circle on this chart so I can see where we are. I'll go on the 15 minutes so I can get a bit more history for you so we can see what's going on. Auto, going back. Okay, so here we go. Perfect trade, right? So what you're looking for the V-shaped recovery, really nice momentum in one direction, get a sweep of liquidity followed by reversal of momentum to the upside, and then you're looking for an inverted fair value gap for your entry condition. So as you can see here, lovely scenario. This is the 15 minute. So you can see you've got your liquidity here. We've come down, we've swept below this low, really nice, as you can see. Obviously, there was a lot of volatility when we came down in this area because there was a big drop in the market, wasn't there? So bias potentially was a bit unknown. But I did think if we came down and swept this liquidity down here and we did get a decent V-shape back to the upside, we'd probably come back up and recover quite nicely. You can see on the 15 minute here, we've got that level of liquidity. We came down, we've clearly swept through that level there. So once you can see that you've come down and you've swept through a nice clean area of liquidity, I'd be coming down to my 5 minute, my 1, 2, 3 and 5 minute time frames, and I'm looking for that reversal back to the upside. You can see here, we got the liquidity sweep, we came up, we came down, and then we started to go sideways a little bit on this 5 minute time frame. This isn't as V-shaped as I would like on the 5 minute. Usually I'd be looking for something where it only takes 5 or 6 candles, and you basically do something like this, straight back to the upside. But you can see on the 5 minute here, we are still looking like, you know, we've come down and then we start to V-shape back up. On the 15 minute, it actually looked a lot cleaner for this particular setup, didn't it? Let me go back and have a look at this again. So you can see we came down, we formed a nice liquidity sweep there, didn't we? And then I'd basically be looking for an inverted fair value gap where I could get into the market. You can see we've actually got a nice gap here. On the 15 minute, you can see we broke through this really nicely back to the upside. Depending on how far up, this one is a bit of a janky one, which I may or may not have taken depending on the scenario, just because we actually hit the internal swing high here before we got the entry, and usually when I do that, I would not take the trade just because it would be invalid. But this one still would have worked, as you can see on the 15 minute. But obviously, I'd be looking personally for a bit more of a clean setup, in my opinion. Let me go back and have a look through these again, so I can show you some more examples on the 5 minute. Obviously, we had that one. That would have been a win on the 15 minute. You can see here, obviously, we've got a few more examples. Let's go across here, have a look. This is actually one to the upside. I'm pretty sure that there was a level of liquidity, because I remember taking this. A level of liquidity sitting something like this. We came up and we actually swept it. came back down, got the manipulation leg, and then came back down again. And we had this really nice fair value gap on the 5 minute. As you can see, we came up, swept liquidity, came back down, came up, swept again with the manipulation leg. We've got the nice inverted fair value gap. Probably, potentially, would have entered on one of these. These are technically closing below, as you can see. Your manual stop loss above, and then I'm aiming for the internal swing high for a 1-for-1. And then I'd probably be aiming for this main swing low down here for this one would have gone for a 2 or a 3-to-1. Even more, you could have potentially held for longer here, but you can see obviously started to push your luck for a reversal. But this would have been a really nice trade. You could have at least got a 2-to-1 here down to this local swing low. Obviously this internal swing low would have been your 1-for-1. I would have gone break even there, and then we basically ran all the way down to this low here. This would have been a lovely trade. Very simple stuff. You get the sweep, and then you're looking for that manipulation leg and the inverted fair value gap. That would have been a really nice trade. I'm going to look around here as well. We've potentially got one here. You can see you've got your level of liquidity. We're looking for that V shape on the chart. You can see we come down, we sweep the liquidity, we start to come back up. Let me just zoom in a bit here so I can see what I'm looking for. We've got a fairly small inverted fair value gap here. I think I might have needed to scale down to the 1 minute or the 2 minute to get a better entry on this one. Let me just highlight this on the chart so I can see it on the 2 minute when I scroll back through. Because we hit this internal swing low before we got the entry below that inverted fair value gap, I probably wouldn't have taken this. But you can see the idea, right? We've got our level of liquidity. We come up into a decent premium. We get the sweep, and then we get that lovely V shape that you're looking for back down. Unfortunately, this one was invalid. But I think potentially if you took this on a lower time frame, I'm getting the impression that potentially... Let me just see if I can see this one on the 2 minute. Because this is only April. Maybe the 3 minute will allow us to see. But in either way, you can see the vision, right? No, I'm still too far. Still too far away. But you can see the vision for what we're looking for. Let me go back and find it again. You can see the vision for what we were looking for there. Obviously, we've got a bit of a V shape here that we might have potentially be looking at. Let me get rid of some of these sweeps so that we can actually get a good idea of what's going on. That's the top and the bottom of this current area. So yeah, having a look here. This one, the price action on this one did look promising. But you could see, if we go and look at this full fair value gap here, we never actually closed back above. And as you can see, we actually rejected and came back down. Lots of chop here. I think this might have been news, potentially. But you can see this is one I probably wouldn't have taken just because the sheer amount of... The fact that we didn't close above the inverted fair value gap means that despite getting the sweep here of liquidity and the V shape, we didn't get the entry model, so I didn't take it. A bit more chopping sideways, etc. here. Some more choppy price action. Potentially a trade here, depending on how long ago you want to use your fair value gaps from. Not really the textbook V shape that we were looking for, but you can see we did eventually close above this very significant fair value gap here. You could have actually took this and this would have won, but obviously not really the V shape I'd be looking for. Probably on the 15 minute, this might have given us an entry. Let's just take a quick look. Look at the 15 minute here. It's not really looking too good, is it? We didn't really get a sweep of any liquidity to the left either, so I probably wouldn't have taken that, as you can see. Although there's a nice 15 minute here that I've just seen on the next array of candles. You can see we've got a lovely fair value gap here. Decent V shape to the downside. Swept some of this previous liquidity here and here. We didn't get the full move back to the downside, but judging by the fact that overall we're bullish, you probably can't expect big retracements like that all the time. You can see here this was actually quite a nice trade as well. You could have entered on this here. Although, as you can see again, we did hit the internal swing high before we closed on this one. So I probably would have looked for a lower time frame entry after seeing this overall 15 minute, and I might have got an entry before we came and hit that internal swing high. Obviously this would have ran for a nice little at least 1-to-1 as well. I probably would have gone to break even after hitting this liquidity level if I'd have taken this, which would have mean it was a 1R and a break even rather than all my runners getting stopped out, but that's fine. You can see all across the market here loads of good trades. This one here was an absolute banger. I remember this one well. Take a look at this on the 5 minute. What we're looking at here. Yeah, this was an absolute banger of a trade, wasn't it? Look at this. So we've got basically, we're going sideways, you know, we get the massive swing to the downside, sweeping out tons of liquidity in the market. We've got this level here, all the way down to this level here. We come all the way down, we tap into this massive fair value gap. I'm guessing this was like a 4-hour fair value gap over here. And then as you can see, we've got this lovely, lovely, lovely textbook V shape forming on the chart. You can see here, we formed our inverted fair value gap. Let me just get rid of this. So we've cleanly got our sweep. We come down, we're starting to come back up. On the 5 minute here, got that nice little entry. Basically enter here, and as you can see, pretty much got a really, really insane trade, to be honest. I would have gone to break even on this. This would have continued all the way up to a massive high of day profit target, which would have been insane. But I think you're getting the picture now. You can see these V-shaped recoveries all across the market and how often they work. Pretty much all the time when you see a big dip, especially to the downside on NQ, most of the time you can just eyeball pretty much every single V-shape on this chart that you can see that comes down and sweeps a level of liquidity, does end up going back to the upside. You can just literally see, as I'm just looking across this chart, every time you start to see that big drop to the downside, these V-shaped recoveries, they do tend to play out pretty much like 80% of the time. My win rate for this has been about 80 or 90%, depending on if you count the break-evens, but you could see basically all of these V-shapes that you see to the downside that sweep a decent level of liquidity do tend to play out eventually. You can see here another one. This would have been probably a good one to look at on the 15 minute. Let me just have a quick look on the 15 minute here at this one, and then we'll wrap up. You can see obviously we've got that nice liquidity sweep to the side here. We've obviously come down here. We started to get our V shape to the upside. A little bit of chop on this one. You can see a really nice, really nice actually inverted fair value gap here. It looked nice when you took it here. This would have obviously chopped around a little bit, but then eventually ran up, hit our internal swing high. I probably would have gone to break even potentially here or maybe here, depending on how bullish I was feeling. You can see this ran pretty much all the way back up to the high of day. Massively profitable trade. Really good stuff. So I hope you're getting the idea with this. These V-shaped recoveries happen all the time. We're actually in the midst of potentially having one here, although we didn't actually get much of a V-shape on this one. We just had a drop and a stall. We actually had a really good one on gold the other day. Just one more example here. Absolutely beautiful trade here. You can see the 5 minute come down. We swept out loads of liquidity here, liquidity here, all the way down to this liquidity down here that we just about swept. And then obviously we start to get the V shape back up. Got a lovely inverted fair value gap here. Would have entered on this, targeting a 1-for-1. You would have hit that basically instantly, as you can see on the next few candles. And then holding a runner all the way back up to the swing high. This would have been a fantastic trade to take, as you can see. Lots and lots of V-shapes in the market. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please do like and subscribe, leave a comment. I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.